Mom left baby in the sink for the whole day. Doctor screams, "Oh my God," when he sees it. It was a quiet morning in a small Ohio town. The sun pushed weakly through half-closed blinds, casting pale stripes across a cluttered kitchen. A faint hum came from the old refrigerator, broken only by the soft crackle of a baby monitor. Somewhere inside that house, something felt wrong. By nightfall, that uneasy stillness would turn into panic. Linda moved slowly, her body heavy from exhaustion. Her hands trembled as she measured formula, eyes glazed from nights of no sleep. Her baby, Eli, whimpered from the next room, his cries raw and uneven. The sound cut straight through her, a reminder that no matter what she tried, nothing seemed to help. The house carried the tired smell of reheated coffee and baby lotion. Dishes piled high in the sink, bottles stacked beside them. On the counter, a half-eaten piece of toast had gone cold hours ago. Linda's reflection in the dark window looked older than her 32 years. She whispered softly, her voice cracking, as if trying to soothe both herself and the crying child. She lifted Eli into her arms. His skin looked flushed, almost sore to the touch. He kicked weakly, letting out small gasps between cries. She pressed him against her chest, pacing the kitchen floor, humming a broken tune her mother once sang. Nothing worked. The clock ticked louder with each minute, each second reminding her how helpless she felt. Desperate to calm him, she turned on the faucet. Steam rose in soft curls as the sink filled with warm water. The gentle sound made Eli's cries falter. She reached for a soft towel, lining the sink before carefully lowering him in. The water rippled around his tiny body, and for the first time that morning, silence filled the room. Linda leaned over the counter, both hands gripping its edge. Her shoulders loosened as she watched him relax, eyes fluttering shut. She stayed like that for a long moment, staring at the small miracle in front of her. Finally, she stepped back, her legs shaky, her breath uneven. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked in the distance. The camera would linger on the stillness of that small kitchen, a peaceful, almost sacred quiet, without knowing that this moment of calm would soon become the reason everyone in town would be talking. Across the narrow fence, Nancy wiped her hands on a dish towel and glanced out her kitchen window. She noticed Linda's curtains were still drawn, the same as they'd been that morning. The neighborhood was quiet except for the low rumble of a lawnmower down the street. But something about that stillness felt off. Nancy tilted her head, listening. Through the faint hum of cicadas, she thought she heard a baby's muffled cry. Hours passed, and the curtains never moved. The mail carrier came and went. A cat wandered across Linda's porch, stretching lazily in the sun. By mid-afternoon, Nancy's worry turned into unease. She walked to the fence, called out Linda's name once, then again. No answer. The baby's cry had gone quiet now, and the silence that followed made her stomach tighten. Inside the small kitchen, sunlight had shifted across the counter. The sink water shimmered softly. The faint sound of a clock ticked somewhere in the house, counting down unseen seconds. When Linda finally stepped out to the pharmacy, clutching her purse, her shoulders were hunched with fatigue. She didn't notice Nancy watching from across the yard. Nancy hesitated only a moment before walking toward the house. She knocked twice, listening. Still nothing. Through the window above the sink, she could just make out a shape. Something small. Something still. Her hand flew to her mouth as panic shot through her chest. She stumbled backward, fumbling for her phone. Minutes later, the wail of sirens cut through the quiet street. Neighbors stepped out of their homes whispering. 2 police cars pulled up, followed by an ambulance. Officers rushed to the door. The sound of boots on wood echoed through the hall as they entered. One stopped short in the kitchen, staring at the sink. The paramedic's voice broke the silence, sharp and trembling. "Oh my God." The camera would hold on that moment. The flashing red lights spilling across the kitchen tiles. The reflection of confusion and fear in every face. Outside, Nancy stood frozen at the gate, clutching her phone to her chest. praying she hadn't just witnessed something unforgivable. And somewhere down the road, Linda's car turned the corner toward home, unaware of the chaos waiting for her. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and cold. Linda sat alone on a hard plastic chair in the hospital waiting room, her hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles turned white. The faint smell of antiseptic filled the air. People passed by, whispering, their eyes darting toward her, then away again. She could still hear the sirens ringing in her ears, still see the flashing lights reflecting off her front window. Her clothes were damp from when the paramedics pulled her away from the sink. She hadn't even been allowed to hold Eli. One officer had guided her into the ambulance, his expression flat, the kind reserved for people who'd already been judged. Now she sat, staring at the floor, her heartbeat echoing in her head. Across the room, a nurse whispered something to another. They looked at her with that mix of pity and disbelief she'd grown used to since Mark's death. Someone muttered the words, "child endangerment." The phrase sliced through her like glass. She buried her face in her hands, her breath shaking. A social worker appeared with a clipboard, her tone brisk but controlled. She asked questions. How long had the baby been in water? When had Linda last checked on him? What exactly was she thinking? Linda tried to answer, but the words came out broken, tangled between sobs. The social worker only nodded, jotting down notes, her expression unreadable. Through the small window of the waiting room door, Linda saw a blur of motion. Doctors rushing, a tiny body on a stretcher, tubes and blankets everywhere. Her stomach twisted. She reached out, but the nurse stopped her, telling her to wait. Her knees nearly buckled. Time crawled. The clock on the wall ticked too loud. A cup of untouched coffee cooled beside her. Her phone buzzed with messages from unknown numbers, reporters maybe, asking if she was the mother from the sink. She turned it face down, unable to look. Finally, footsteps approached. A nurse stopped in front of her, breathing heavily from running the halls. She said the words Linda had been praying to hear all night. Her baby was alive, stable for now. Then she added quietly that the doctor wanted to see her immediately. Linda stood, her legs trembling, her heart caught somewhere between hope and dread. Dr. Harris stood in the hallway outside the examination room, his hands pressed against his forehead. His face was pale, his breathing uneven. When Linda entered, escorted by a nurse, he turned sharply. His eyes were wide with disbelief, his voice trembling with emotion. "Oh my God, Linda. What have they done?" Linda froze. The nurse stepped back, leaving the two alone. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of machines filled the silence, steady and unfeeling. Dr. Harris paced once, then looked at her again, his voice softer now but still shaking. He asked her to sit. She lowered herself into the chair, her shoulders sagging, her hands twisting together. She told him what happened. The sirens, the police, the neighbors. Her voice cracked when she said she never meant for things to look that way. He listened, his expression tightening with every word. When she mentioned the sink, his eyes widened further. He sank into a chair across from her, whispering something under his breath. He rubbed his temples and stared at the floor, as if piecing something together. Then he stood, went to the door, and called out to the nurses. His tone was sharp now, urgent. He asked for Eli's chart, flipping through it quickly when it arrived. Linda sat motionless, watching him read. His face softened, then broke into something between sorrow and relief. He turned back to her, his voice thick with emotion. He told her that what she did may have looked terrible, but it might have been the very thing that kept her baby alive. Her breath caught in her chest. She didn't fully understand, but his words hit her like a wave. Dr. Harris pressed his hand to his mouth and whispered again, "Oh my God." Then he shook his head, muttering about the delay, about how this shouldn't have happened. He walked over to her, lowering his voice. His tone lost all authority. It was just human now, almost apologetic. He said she wasn't a bad mother, that the misunderstanding had gone too far. Linda covered her face and began to cry. The doctor placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. For the first time in days, someone was looking at her not with judgment, but with understanding. News of the sink baby spread faster than Linda could breathe. By the next morning, reporters waited outside her house. Headlines called her careless, heartless, unfit. Strangers on social media judged her from behind glowing screens, their words sharp and cold. Linda stayed inside, holding Eli close, listening to the sound of voices through the window. Each one felt like a stone thrown at her name. At the hospital, Dr. Harris stood before cameras with shaking hands. His face was tired, his voice hoarse from sleeplessness. He told the truth. He explained that Eli was born with a rare condition called congenital ichthyosis, a disorder that prevented his skin from staying hydrated. Without moisture, his skin would crack, bleed, and become infected. The therapy cradle the hospital ordered had never arrived. Linda had done the only thing she could. She kept her baby wet to keep him alive. The clip spread across news stations by evening. The same people who had cursed her name now whispered in guilt. Comments turned from anger to apology. Neighbors who had closed their blinds now knocked on her door, leaving casseroles and soft baby blankets on the porch. Nancy came last, her face pale and tearful. She stood on the porch for a long time before Linda opened the door. She tried to speak, but only managed a trembling, "I'm sorry." Linda didn't answer. She just nodded, her eyes tired but gentle. Behind her, Eli cooed softly, wrapped in a clean towel. A week later, Linda sat beside a hospital crib where Eli floated peacefully in a small hydrotherapy cradle, the real one this time. His skin looked calmer, his breathing steady. Dr. Harris entered quietly, checking the monitors. He smiled faintly, telling her the baby was improving. Linda leaned close, brushing a damp strand of hair from her son's forehead. The water glistened in the soft light, moving like liquid gold. She whispered to him, her voice barely more than breath. Outside, rain tapped against the hospital windows, slow and steady. The narrator's voice fades in softly. Sometimes what looks like a mistake is an act of love. Sometimes the person everyone blames is the only one brave enough to do what love demands. The screen fades to black. Then, silence.